completely thrown to the wolves. In 2008 is when it was reported to the news there in Los Angeles and was handed over this audio that the whistleblower was instructed to delete all this stuff, all of it, and they didn't do anything, nothing. March 20th of 2008, Norma Perez, who was hired by the VA to be a PTSD program coordinator and a PTSD psychologist, put out an email to everybody in her medical center here in Tyler, Texas. She was quoted saying, "I'd like to suggest that you refrain from giving a diagnosis of PTSD to our veterans straight out. This means that veterans will not get the disability benefits and health care for PTSD. She went on to say that we really do not have the time to do extensive testing that should be done to determine PTSD for our veterans. This is a PTSD program coordinator. This is a PTSD psychologist who was hired by the VA to help our veterans, who told everybody not to help." Again, quoted, "We do not have the time to do the extensive testing that is needed to determine PTSD for our veterans. I wear this ring to sit there and show everybody that I come into contact with that 22 veterans on average commit suicide daily because of PTSD. And a VA psychologist told her people do not diagnose veterans with PTSD, knowing that they wouldn't get the health care they needed." May 2009, Eric Consecchi urged a Democratic congressman from North Carolina, his name was Brad Miller, to reverse his decision and put back into circulation a whistleblower, a Dr. Ann Chackol, Chackol. She was a whistleblower. She went to her congressman because of intimidation practices, because of bullying, because of harassment from her supervisor, a Dr. Mona Melham, Melham. Congress did an investigation for this whistleblower. They did an investigation. The subcommittee concluded that this doctor, Mona Melham, Melham, deleted, destroyed 30 years of research. And Eric Consecchi told Brad Miller, a congressman, to put this whistleblower back into circulation, to put her back under the same supervisor she was reporting. You know what happened after Congress concluded their investigation? Do you understand what Legionnaire's disease is? Legionella? That staff mishandled Legionella, which infected the water supply at that VA medical center, and it contributed to 5 veterans dying, losing their lives. In 2011, right back to Dayton. This time, instead of the medical center, it was the dental clinic there in Dayton. The director was Guy Richardson. He was the director of that dental clinic. This clinic has some of the most atrocious poor medical practices known to man. You want to talk about mistreatment? You want to talk about completely disregarding the lives of the men and women that sacrificed everything for this nation? Because of their mismanagement, because of their poor medical practices at this dental clinic in Dayton, at the VA Medical Center, hundreds of veterans tested positive for hepatitis B, hepatitis C, and HIV because of blood-borne pathogens. because they didn't give a fuck. From 2013 to 2014, Congress put a bill on the floor that simply stated VA disability claims are to be approved or denied within 125 days after that veteran submits his claim to the VA with an accuracy rating of 98%. You want to know why they put this bill on the floor? Because the Congress concluded that it not only took 3 years for a veteran to get his claim back from the VA because of service disabilities that he or she got while they were on active duty, is because when it came back for the first time, it was denied. And I am one of them. I'm supposed to have hearing aids. The VA refuses to pay for it or acknowledge the fact that I have hearing loss because of my 8 years of service. And I am one of hundreds of thousands of veterans that have their claims denied. Not only do I have proof in the VA, but I got proof in the private sector. And there are thousands of veterans just like me that have done the exact same thing. Guess where that bill has gone? It's gone nowhere. Just like the VA accountability bill that was denied yesterday by the Democrats in Senate because they would rather look out for the public unions that work in the VA versus the veterans that sacrificed, that served, that provided the freedom for those fucking criminals to sit in their leather seats and snub their nose at the men and women that understand what service really is, that understand what sacrifice really is. They denied it because they would rather look out for the money that is going into their pockets to reelect them back in the same leather seat so they can sit on their fat ass and not do a damn thing for the men and women that understand what service is. In 2013, Jarren Heng, you're going to hear his name a lot. This guy is more riddled with scandals than the President of the United States, and he still has his job. 2013, Jarren Heng allowed bonuses, knowing that there was health care scandals, knowing that there was financial mismanagement, there was mismanagement of taxpayer funds, still allowed bonuses to be handed out to these lying sacks of shit. In Pittsburgh, Atlanta, Waco, Dayton, Dallas, and Buffalo. And you want to talk to me about accountability? You want to put out on the news about how they didn't know? You cannot provide a reasonable enough of an excuse from a wartime commander that he didn't know what was going on in the department that he is in charge of. A wartime commander. With all the logistics that are going on. I was an NCO in combat. I understood my responsibilities to my men as a non-commissioned officer, and I understood how much work was put in. You cannot sit there and tell me, you cannot provide a reasonable enough excuse on how a wartime commander, with everything that's going on, with all the moving parts on the battlefield that are happening from second to second to second, with all the men underneath him, you cannot give me an excuse, a reasonable enough excuse, how he didn't know. Especially in 2012. This is an email that was sent to the Honorable Jarren Heng by Jeff Miller, who is a chairman, and by a board member, Bob Filner, wanting Jarren Heng to explain himself why over $100 million has been used improperly for conferences that the VA had. $6.1 million was used for a conference at Walt Disney World and their spa resort. There isn't one corporation here in the private sector that would waste that much money. In 2010, the VA wasted $20 million in conferences. In 2011, they blew $22 million in conferences. It's in black and white. Here it is. And you're going to talk to me, you're going to put out on the news about him needing to resign. This is willful criminal neglect. This is people that have willfully lied, that have destroyed the lives of thousands of veterans, thousands of families, thousands of men and women that have openly sacrificed, that picked up a rifle, loaded a magazine, and defended freedom abroad. They willfully turned their back. These self-serving motherfuckers allowed our veterans to die. They lied about it. They stole taxpayer money, because how else are you going to explain that? How else are you going to explain them lying in order to receive performance bonuses? They lied to ensure that their performance was in part for them to receive thousands of dollars in bonuses, thousands of taxpayer dollars. And the director of the VA allowed it. He knew about it. Written proof that he knew. He knew. People in Congress knew. And they didn't do anything. This administration knew. And they didn't do anything. The President of the United States is going to sit here and say that he is absolutely confident in the abilities of Eric Consecchi. Bullshit. Eric Consecchi is a fucking meat puppet who is doing exactly what the president wants, which is allowing the men and women that gave their lives for this nation to die. And you want to talk to me about accountability? You want to put out on the local news and the national news about accountability and about resignations? How about you start putting out, how about you start asking the question, who's going to prison? Because if this was a corporation, if this was a CEO, if this was a CFO of a major corporation, they wouldn't be just put in prison, they would be buried underneath it. And the self-serving bureaucracy that allowed our men and women, my beloved veteran family, to die so they can receive money, so they can fill their own pockets, allowed it to happen. Got Democrats in the Senate that would rather pay tribute to their unions who are putting money into their re-election campaigns versus serving the men and women that gave them the freedom for them to sit on their fat asses. I got trees outside my home that produce thousands of gallons of oxygen every year that they need to go apologize to. And you're not reporting it. The American people are not seeing what is willfully happening to our veterans. Here's the bigger picture. You want to maintain a volunteer military force? The future of our military and the safety of this nation, the national security of this nation, is held up by the treatment of veterans. For future generations to willfully enlist into the military, they're going to gauge their future based off the treatment of past veterans. When they see the treatment like this happening to veterans on a daily basis,